My name is Victoria Davis. I am obtaining my master's in education. I am currently enrolled in theories of teaching and learning, and my professor is Dr. Ann Hake. So, our lesson was to review a brain myth that we feel is either accurate or inaccurate while discussing the topic via research. So, the myth that I have chosen is by Alyssa Jung, and she wrote that memory works like a photocopier. Now, before researching, I felt like, hey, our memory is like a photocopier. However, after research, I know that that is totally inaccurate. So our brain does recreate the memory. So you can think of the brain and the memory as laying tracks in the woods. The more you walk a path in the woods, the more your brain commits to that memory. So because you revisited that track, you're going to remember it. So that's exactly how our brain works. Now, there are different learning techniques that contribute to this theory or this myth. Okay, so the learning techniques that I went over were self-explanation, the imagery use of text learning, and practice testing. So the utilization of these learning techniques is self-explanation is moderately used, so it helps and it kind of sort of doesn't help. Imagery use of text learning is not really used. However, we all know that practice testing is definitely used. So, the definition of self explanation is when a student explains to themselves the meaning of either words or the text for to gain understanding. So, with that being said, the student would read out loud to gain understanding, but in realization, that students also going back in their mind and remembering, okay, I remember what this means. I remember what that means. So maybe this has a lot to do with it. Like, let's say tying your shoe. Like, you can read an excerpt on tying your shoe, and you'll go back into your memory. Oh, I remember to get the bunny ears and put it together. So you know where I'm going with it, right? Awesome. So imagery use of text learning. I can relate that to reading a book. Okay, but the definition of that is attempted to have a mental image of the text and the material. So that's like reading the book. When you're reading a book, you definitely imagine the words, you definitely imagine the scenery. However, with that being said, like, who remembers like the whole text of a book after you're reading it? Probably won't after about 2 or 3 days. So if you don't continuously read that book, you're not gonna remember the information. So practice testing. Everyone knows that practice testing is the best like learning technique. Like, you can remember practice testing like the back of your hand, because if you definitely have you have the example of how your test is gonna look. You have the example of questions that you're gonna take, and you remember that. The more you practice test, the more you could become better at testing. Everyone knows that. All right. So an example that I have gotten from my handy dandy book. The book is called How We Learn by Benedict Carey. Is baseball. All right. So that can be found on page 176. When a baseball player is playing baseball, you have your pitcher and your batter. Now, a lot of people think like, oh, the batter has a natural gift at swinging and hitting the ball. However, I strongly feel that that has a lot to do with muscle memory and the perception from our brain. Okay, so the muscle memory of always swinging. You're always swinging and trying to hit the ball, and the perception of the brain trying to calculate the time that the ball leaves the pitcher's hand until the batter is actually hitting the ball. So it's like kind of, so it's not photocopier like memory. It's actually perception and muscle memory of the body remembering, hey, you have to swing, you have to hit the ball, you have to follow through. It's also the perception of the brain to know that, hey, at this point you have to hit the ball. So, with all that being said, memory works like a photocopier is definitely inaccurate in my eyes now. After going through all the learning techniques that I studied, and after knowing how the memory does work, like, I definitely understand everything now. So I hope this video finds everyone everyone just fine, and I hope you understand everything that just came out of my mouth.